All right, this may be the most important question you can ask yourself. How do you get out of a negative emotion and quickly into a positive one? So in the brain, emotions emerge from a loop between the brain and the body. So if you change one part of that loop, you begin to transform the emotion. We all want positive emotions, right? Like joy and excitement and serenity. And even negative emotions like sadness and fear can provide valuable, meaningful experiences, right? So how do you control your emotions rather than the other way around? That's the real question. To answer it, let's see how your brain creates emotions by looking at, a painful emotion that we've all experienced, disappointment. All right, let's say you just got some bad news. You were passed up for a promotion at work. Now, of course, that stings, right? A pit forms in your stomach, your heart sinks, your body just feels a bit heavier, right? Now, inside your brain, something interesting is happening. The insular cortex is a brain region that helps map out what's happening inside your body, including the feelings of like your breath, your heart rate, your digestive system. Now, it does this by processing signals that are coming from the nerves that suffuse all those internal organs. But in this case, right, in the case of emotion, disappointment, that pit in your stomach, that sensation in your heart, those may not actually correspond to real physiological changes. It's more like these are simulations produced by the insular cortex and related brain regions. And another important brain region when we're talking about negative emotion is the amygdala, which can switch your nervous system into fight or flight mode. But that feeling is a particular pattern of neural activity, right? Even though it seems to be coming from your body, it's happening in your brain. And at the same time, your brain is generating an interpretation or an appraisal. But then quickly, those thoughts can turn a lot darker and become much more detached from reality. I'm bad at my job. They hate me. I'm stupid. This always happens to me. Right? These are cognitive interpretations, and they're likely a product of brain systems like the default mode network. Now, this network is involved in thinking about ourselves. It's involved in thinking about our place in the social world. And these thoughts shape and modify how we feel. They amplify those unpleasant bodily feelings. So in other words, our brains start regulating emotions the moment they arise. But the good news is that we can intervene at least 3 points along that emotion loop. So let's look at how to do that. All right, step 1, influence interoception. So the brain constructs feelings through interoception, which we just talked about. That's that ongoing model of the body's internal condition. Signals from your organs and other internal systems travel upward through peripheral nerves, through your spinal cord, your brainstem, and insular cortex, and then you become conscious of these bodily feelings. But here is the most important thing to remember. Interoception is not a one-way street. You can change the simulation that your brain is building of your body. How do you do that? Well, the most direct route is also the most obvious. Change what's going on inside your body. When it comes to shifting your physiology, in my opinion, there is nothing like physical exercise. A single bout of exercise can improve your mood, it can reduce anxiety, it can shift your attention. When you're running or you're lifting weights, it's much easier to just stop thinking about the fact that, you didn't get the promotion. But the more important thing is that physical exercise drastically changes your heart rate. It can influence digestion and other physical processes as well. It basically just, shakes up your system, sometimes literally. Right? And at the same time, it can release endogenous opioids and endocannabinoids, which activate neurons that are involved in reducing pain and increasing pleasure. At the same time, it can influence dopamine signaling, which can make you feel more motivated. This is all great, right? But of course, exercise isn't always practical or possible. And so in those cases, you could try slow, controlled breathing exercises where the exhale is significantly longer than the inhale. The reason for that is that long exhales help your system enter the parasympathetic or rest and digest mode. So your heart rate goes down, measures of stress can go down, and that can be really useful. But sometimes it's also worth it to just check your basic physiological needs, right? Hunger, dehydration, sleep, all of this can make emotion regulation harder. So for example, when you're hungry, your brain can confuse that feeling with an emotional feeling. And it can kind of mix those up, right? Which can make a negative emotion, if it's present, feel even worse. But similarly, another strategy is to use sleep, right? So especially if you're sleep deprived or you just don't get enough sleep, taking a 20-minute nap is a great way to kind of recharge your system. But whatever you do, just shift your physiology, right? That alone can start to make you feel much better. But really powerful negative emotions like disappointment and anxiety, often that physiological shift can help, but it's probably not enough. So step 2 is to change the interpretation. This is often the hardest thing because, it's not about having a special skill, but it's just that we're often really resistant and honestly pretty stubborn. Okay, so this is called cognitive reappraisal. But one way to think about it is that you're telling your brain that it was wrong, or at least that it's inaccurate in its interpretation of the situation. Of course, most of us don't like to be told we're wrong, even if the person telling us that is ourselves, right? But the truth is we often make ourselves deeply miserable by overgeneralizing, by catastrophizing, and just generally manipulating reality to make it fit with the idea that we're somehow incapable or we're incompetent or hopeless, right? Now, in the brain, think of this whole process as where cortical networks that are responsible for thought and self-evaluation are essentially telling those interoceptive networks that everything is not only bad, but catastrophically bad. So what you have to do is change that message that's being sent. And again, this can be hard because our brains are convinced that they're simply, logically deducing true facts like, I'm incapable of achieving my goals, I'm worthless, stupid, so on, right? We think these are true in the moment. But the key is to push against those inaccurate, overly negative thoughts, right? It's not about pretending that everything's perfectly fine. It's about introducing relevant and true and positive statements. So pull out your notes app on your phone or a pen and paper and write down answers to these 3 questions. Okay, first, what are 3 objective facts that I learned from this experience? What did I learn, right? 2, what is something I'm grateful for and something I'm proud of? And 3, what's the next step I can take today? What you write down doesn't have to be profound, doesn't even have to be full sentences, right? Just get them onto paper, even if you feel resistance in the moment, which is probably going to happen. Now, what's going on is that these questions kind of widen your attention. They let you see past that worst case scenario. But most importantly, they produce a concrete action you can take. And that leads us to the final step in this process. Okay, super quick, I just want to jump in here and say that if you like these videos, please consider supporting Sense of Mind by either going to patreon.com/senseofmind, becoming a supporter there, or now you can join as a YouTube member by tapping the join button below this video. Either way, I'm super grateful for the support, and you will get exclusive content only for supporters. So thank you so much. All right, let's get back into emotion regulation. Okay, step 3, take action now, right? Move the ball forward, even if it's just by 1 inch. Send that email, open the document, make the call, go for a walk, make a plan, whatever it is. Even if it's just a tiny step, just do it. You're just showing your brain that your actions matter, that you can trust yourself to keep going when the going gets tough. This probably will seem insignificant at first, but inside your brain, you may be preventing the process that leads to the feeling of helplessness. So some studies have shown that when an animal experiences uncontrollable stress, neurons in an area of the brainstem called the dorsal raphe nucleus release serotonin to several different areas of the brain. And this can lead to a persistent state where the animal stops putting forth effort, or at least reduces that effort, and may even give up on trying to escape from stressful situations. When you take an action, right, and when you show your brain that your efforts actually do matter, the prefrontal cortex can prevent the dorsal raphe nucleus from activating. And it can instead enhance signaling in dopamine-related regions like the striatum. So action can move you from hopeless disappointment to a more positive, motivated, hopeful state. Now look, I get it. I can see what you're thinking. This 3-step process sounds okay, but probably too simple to work. But here's the truth. Emotion regulation rarely begins with one dramatic act that changes everything. Typically, it begins by interrupting the loop, right? Just small actions that allow you to exit that loop and gradually build back to a better state. Just remember that you are in charge of how you feel. This one experience doesn't have to define the rest of your life or even the rest of your day. You may look back on this one day and see that this experience taught you something deeply important. Maybe it made you more resilient. Maybe it was the beginning of a new, brighter chapter in your life. I know you might still be thinking, okay, how do I go from just a more neutral state or maybe a little more positive state to something more motivating, right? More motivational state of mind. If that's what you're wondering, check out this video right here. I talk a lot more about motivation, about the brain, and how to enhance that. But anyway, I really appreciate you guys watching. Thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.